أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الغر الميامين ولعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم حسبك من الكذب أن تحدث بكل ما سمعت. First of all, I want to welcome you all for the class, and I got some feedback yesterday, and one of the feedback was obviously some people had questions. So Alhamdulillah, today we figured out how to solve that, and I would definitely be looking forward for your questions, inshallah, because this topic is of fundamental importance. And more questions I have, I think it will be better for me to explain and clear the misconceptions that people might have. We were talking about the topic of taqleed yesterday, and inshallah, we will be moving forward now. We went through the conditions of marji', what are the 9 conditions for a marji'. Then we went to the next slide, which was how to identify a marji', mushtahide a'lam, right? Um, then we finished on it, and now we will be going on the next slide, which is 4 ways of knowing a ruling, right? So in different books, there are different things written in, but I mean, like, it doesn't matter. You say it 3, you say it 4, you say it 5. But if it all boils down to the stuff that I'll be mentioning you now, will be easier for you to understand. The first way, which is really rare and which is, I would say, the most authentic one, is hearing from Mujtahid himself, right? Let's suppose you went to Najaf al-Ashraf and you met Sayyid Sistani, and he told some of the rulings regarding some stuff, right, that you might ask, right? That's the one way of getting the rulings, right? The second way of getting the ruling is when there are two just people. What I mean just is that I would use the jargon now because I explained that yesterday. Two adil, right? Adil, what did we define yesterday? Adil is a person that refrains from doing sins and is acting upon all the wajibat and compulsory things that are wajib upon him. And if he does a sin, see, like, Adil doesn't need to be a masoom. Definitely, he will be committing some sins, right? Generally. In case if he commits a sin, then he has to retract that immediately and has to get forgiveness from Allah Almighty immediately, right? So what I mean to do is that usually when we are saying about this thing of being adil, it doesn't mean that someone has to have an amama on their top, right? Yeah, usually the scholars, the maulanas, are generally adil. But I'm also saying there are people that are without the amama, but they are adil too, right? That's why you see a lot of people that are going into the mosque, that are sitting in the front row, that are acting upon the wajibat. They're one of the best people that you would see. They would be counted as adil too. So another way of knowing it is, let's suppose if you know them ijmalan. Ijmalan means not in detail, but like generally you know them, and you know them, they are truth-speaking people, they are good people, they are good in their conduct. And if they tell you, okay, Ayatullah Sistani has this and this ruling, if there are 2 people attesting it, then it would be fine for you to act upon it, right? The third way is when a trustworthy person that you know personally attests to something. Now, what's the difference between the second and third? Before we come into this difference, let me explain you the third ruling. So the third ruling is, let's suppose my mom, let's suppose my dad, who I trust a lot, right? They went and they got the masala of Ayatullah Sistani, either from his office, either from himself, or from reading the book. And if they tell me the masala, and if I know I'm like 99% sure that whatever they're telling me is right, then I would be acting upon it, right? So trustworthy person can be any person. They don't even have to be adil, right? Let's suppose there's a good friend of mine. He's not really religious, but I know he's a truthful person. So even though he is not religious, that doesn't make him an adil, but he's a truthful person. I know him really good, and I can act upon whatever he says, right? In that way, I can act whatever he is quoting from Sayyid Sistani. If I know like he's a person that doesn't quote wrong things, he's an authentic person, etc. So the difference between the second and third is, in third case, you know that person personally, I would say, or somewhat in depth, that this person can be relied upon. But in the second case, you just know the general conduct of the person. Let's suppose I even don't know the name of the people that are sitting in the first row, but I do see them every day. They're coming to the masjid, they're praying the namaz. They're really good people. Whenever they meet me, you know, they're always smiling. And I have ijmalan, like generally I know that they are good people. So that will make them just people, right? That will make them adil. But I wouldn't know that in depth. I might not even know their name, right? But I just have enough idea that these are just people. Let me give you another example because this just gets a little confusing. Let's suppose I went to Karbala and I have there's a time for prayers. There is a Jama'ah prayers, like congregation prayers to be done. I don't know the Imam personally. What I can do is that if I know people that are of high religious significance and they are praying behind that Imam, then I would have a general knowledge of it, not with detail, but a really general knowledge of it that he's an adil person. And I would pray behind him, even though that's the first time I'm hearing him. That's the first time I'm coming across his imama. Do you get it? So in that way, even though I don't know him personally, but I will still pray behind him. Why? Because I see people that are good in conduct are praying behind him, and this gives me an itminan or some sense of surety that this person is adil. So that's the difference between the second point and the third point. And the fourth point is extracting from an authentic source. This is really important, right? Because I mean, like the three cases that you would be coming across uh, are applicable, but most of them that you would come across, and when you would be doing your own personal research, it will be the books that you will be using. And that's what we want you to do. We want you to be connected with the books so that when you come across the books, you can do your own decision. What would be that authentic source? That authentic source can be a book that Mujtahid has written, which is usually Minhaj al-Salihin in Arabic. And I would say 90 to 95% of the time would be Tawdihul Masail, or the Islamic rulings that you would be coming across. I would still say 90 to 95% of the time. Because there might be some sort of like problems related to typing. There might be some other issues that we might not know really in depth. But generally, these sources can be relied upon. And what would be the other sources? Other sources might be the website. Let's suppose if I go to official website of say Sistani, Ayatullah Sistani has a set of question answers I can go into, and I would say, okay, Maulana, I have an issue. Yes, Sayyid Sistani, what's the ruling about it? You go into question answers and then you get the answer. That's another way because I have an itminan and I'm like 95% sure, I would say, that whatever the rulings are there in question answer section of Sayyid Sistani is a reflection of what he has said, right? But still, if there is a conflict between two books or a question answer and a book, or some sort of conflict comes in within the sources, then the most authentic source to be relied upon is the book that he has written in Arabic, which is called Minhajus Salihin. Now, this is not for you guys to understand right now. This is for people that you know that go into deep studies and that want to refer different books to get the ruling. For them, the important thing is that they, in case if they get like some sort of contradiction or some sort of discrepancy between two books, then they would be referring to the book which Ayatollah Sistani himself has authorized, is what? Minhajus Salihin. Anyways, so for our concern, we can still trust Islamic laws, which is translated into English. And in case if something comes up which just doesn't sound really fine, or which seems to have a contradiction with another source, then you can probably go to someone that knows these masala really well, and they can elaborate you in a better way. Um, should we move forward, or someone had a question? Like, I would love to hear a question, even if you are uncomfortable coming like through video, you can just ask me through an audio and that will be fine with me. in case if you have question you want to give in writing, that's just let brother Raza know about it, right? Because when I'm giving the lecture, sometimes I'm so busy that I just don't keep hold of whosoever is messaging me, right? I see probably there is someone messaging me. Let's go into chat for powers. Someone who wants to be my student. That brother Hasnan has asked a question that has to do with a marja having a legitimate birth. I mean, like honestly, these are something that
What?
one of the brother has asked a question from last class, which we were mentioning the conditions of a marja. We mentioned the fourth condition of that person having a legitimate birth, right? Someone who is halal, right? I mean, like honestly, this is something which is just written in the book. Generally, alhamdulillah, all of us here that are present here are of legitimate birth, and that's something I would say is written in it, and that have some more implications that has to do with some other things that we won't be able to go into, right? Because there were people in the past in the history that claimed themselves to be mujtahid. I'm not talking about the Shia world. I'm talking about the non-Shia world. They claimed themselves some ijtihad. Let's suppose Muawiyah. Muawiyah claimed to be a mujtahid when he came against Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam. And if you go through the books of our brothers, it will be clearly mentioned that he was a mujtahid. Do you get the point? But even then, if you go into the history, you will come across historical facts that he was not even of legitimate birth. So our answer sometimes is that since Muawiyah didn't have the legitimate birth, he's not qualified to be a mujtahid. So that I would say that has to do with the historical thing that we had it in past. And right now it's not really applicable. Alhamdulillah, that's not even a question that you would usually come in, but people, we have to write in the book because historically there were figures that claimed to be a mujtahid and were of loose character. Um, let's go into the next slide, which is Brother Raza. Can you give me one favor? In case if there are questions coming in, I might not keep hold of all the chat, all the questions are coming in. So if you can interrupt me after each slide and just ask me the question that are relevant to our topic, would that be fine with you?
Yeah, definitely. I'll do that.
Okay. Let's go to the next question, which is a set of common questions that come in. So these were the the conditions of to be a marja, how would you extract the ruling, etc. Now a question comes in which are really common. First question that would come in as marja changed the ruling, and now you would come across this thing every time. Oh, marja has changed the ruling. Oh, marja was saying this thing, and the ruling is changed like this. So for us, if we know from his book, let's suppose the authentic reference that we have used that said that you would have to do this and this thing in a particular fashion, that is hujjah upon us. That's good enough. Now, if we have a doubt that whether the marja has changed the ruling or not, I'm talking about the doubt. I'm not even talking about if someone doesn't, it's just like having a random thought which is not even authentic and you're just thinking, oh, whether the ruling has changed or not. I'm talking about a genuine doubt, genuine thing coming into one's mind, oh, whether marja has changed this ruling or not. Then the answer is that you don't have to investigate personally. And I'm not talking about exceptional situation. Generally, we don't have if the marja has changed the ruling or not. And whatever ruling we have seen in his book, that would be considered as a hujjah. Hujjah means something which is binding upon us and which is sufficient for us. So we don't have to investigate and we don't have to delve further. Whatever ruling we got through in the first edition of the book, that should be good enough. Yes, if you coincidentally come across a ruling which is different to the first one, then you would see which edition is that ruling in. I have the fifth edition, and in the eighth edition, the book came in, and that had a different ruling. So then, since I got the knowledge, then it is binding upon me to refer to the eighth edition. Because if I have the ruling from fifth edition And there is a contradiction between a fifth edition and the second edition. So since fifth edition is the most recent one, then that would be good enough for me. So sometimes we have people saying, oh, Ayatullah Sistani changed it, Ayatullah Sistani didn't change it. For us to be sufficient for his book, and that should be good enough for us. Another question comes in, God forbid, na'udhu billah, Khuda na khasta, if a marja died, if marja dies, then what we need to do? If marja dies, then we have to refer to, there are two kinds of maraji generally. One is on the top of the notch, which is, I would say for the sake of our learning, it's Ayatullah Sistani. Then whosoever you would consider a'lam, most knowledgeable among all the people living in, after Ayatullah Sistani is fal a'lam. Fal means after, a'lam means most knowledgeable one. So fal a'lam means anyone who is most knowledgeable one after Ayatullah Sistani. So if a marja dies, na'udhu billah, just saying for our learning, may Allah preserve Ayatullah Sistani and give him a long life. But hypothetically, theoretically, if we go into the situation, if Ayatullah Sistani dies, na'udhu billah, then what would we do? We would be referring to fal a'lam. Let's suppose for me, fal a'lam, as per my research, is Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani. So let's suppose after Ayatullah Sistani, I would be referring to whom? Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani. And then I would be seeing his ruling, what is his ruling about doing the taqleed of the dead marja. Because Ayatullah Sistani, for our example, has already died. I'm referring to Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani. I will go into his tawzi and I would see what he has written about us to remain in the taqleed of the dead marja, if that marja is a'lam. If Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani can say about 2 or 3, say it is wajib upon you to remain in the taqleed of a'lam, then I have to still remain in the taqleed of Ayatullah Sistani. If he says you are allowed to do so, then I have a choice. Either I remain in the taqleed of Ayatullah Sistani, or I would refer to Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani. There are some marja that would say haram, it's not allowed for you to remain in the taqleed of Ayatullah Sistani. Then for that matter, I have to choose the new marja, which will be the fal a'lam. Let's suppose Sheikh Bashir al-Najafi. Sheikh Bashir al-Najafi has a ruling, when a marja dies, then it's haram upon us to remain in his taqleed. Okay, we have to go to the new marja. Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani, as far as my knowledge is concerned, he says it's wajib upon you to remain in the taqleed of the previous marja. And then there are some scholars, I think like Ayatullah Makaram Shiradi and other people, that would say that it's allowed for you to go to continue with the old marja. The thing which is important here is that you would see a lot of people still today that are living in, they still follow Ayatullah Hui. I'm just giving you a practical example. Ayatullah Hui was really knowledgeable one. After his death, a lot of people refer to Ayatullah Sistani. Ayatullah Sistani has this ruling that if you think that the last marja was most knowledgeable one among all, then you still have to remain in his taqleed. You can't do taqleed of, like you can't do my taqleed, you have to remain in taqleed of Ayatullah Hui, right? Here, another important question that comes into our mind is that what do we mean by if a marja dies, and is it wajib? What about our things that has to do with let's suppose homes, let's suppose the financial obligations that we have to give, since the old marja has already died, financial obligations and things that has to do with the current marja, then for that matter I have to refer to the new marja, which is Ayatullah Sistani. If I have to give my homes, I have to give my fitrana, if I have to give some other Raddul Madalim, things that has to do with our financial obligation or things that we would be incurring, or the new masail will be coming in, then for that matter, I'll be referring to Ayatullah Sistani for the people that are following Ayatullah Hui. So this was, now the third question that might come in is what rulings are necessary to learn? So those things, look, there are so many rulings that we can learn, and there are so many things that are in fiqh that it is practically impossible for someone to learn everything. Trust me. We were just talking about the matter of taqleed. Imagine if we have to read the book of Tahara, Kitab al-Salah, different other books. It just gets really difficult to remember everything and to learn everything, especially that doesn't concern to our practical life. Then as for the marajir, what things are important to learn? Look, I personally don't know everything. You know, there are so many abwab in fiqh, there are so many chapters in fiqh. I don't have knowledge of all the topics. What are the important topics that I need to learn? The important topics that we need to learn are ammatul balawa. Remember this word. It's a jargon, but it's an easier English translation I'll give you. Ammatul balawa are those important issues that you are incurring every day. Let's suppose, what are the issues that you're incurring every day? You have to do wudu every day. You have to pray 5 times of 5 salat every day. You have to keep fasting every year. You have to take out homes every year, right? We have to take care of our ghusl, tahara, and everything. So those are the things that we are incurring frequently, that we are coming across every time. Since we are coming those things every time, it is important for us to learn the rulings that are pertinent to our everyday affairs, right? So I need to learn deeply about what? Namaz, really good. Need to learn about wudu. Need to learn about tahara. Need to learn the etiquettes of washroom. Things that has to do with my everyday life. And things that I might perceive will become important to me. Let's suppose I'm residing in Toronto. I don't have to go anywhere. But let's suppose if I have to go every week to a different city. Now, in a common situation, I didn't have to learn about what? About the things that has to do with musafir, about the things that has to do with traveler. But since I'm traveling a lot, then I have to learn the masail, I have to learn the issues that are concerned to travelers, be it related to fasting or be it related to praying. So the rule of the thumb is every day what you're incurring, every day that you have to come across the masail, we need to learn that every time. And if you think that something might become important to you in the near future because you have an exceptional situation to deal with, then you have to learn about that specific thing too. Let's suppose if I get married, then I have to learn the fiqh of marriage, things that I need to take care of my wife, etc., etc. So more you would be experiencing things in your life, more things will be getting wajib upon you. And if we don't learn it, we will be incurring the adab of Allah, because Allah has ordained us to learn things that have to do with daily life. Brother, is there any question, Razabai? Or should I move forward?
Not yet. I don't see any chat message or any raise hand. So
Why I'm getting some messages is following
maybe
Allah Wajib. Please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, that was from you. Okay, there's a brother that asked me the question. Okay, so some people are messaging me privately. Um, okay, there are two questions that are here. One is whether they will have the PowerPoint presentation accessible. Brother Raza, are we doing something about it?
yeah. So definitely after each session, we will send them the PowerPoint presentation, as well as we will mention what ruling numbers were, taught in today's lesson. So yeah,
Thank
we
you
will
so much.
definitely do.
So a PowerPoint presentation, brother, your question will be answered. You will get the PowerPoint presentation. The question is following Ayatullah Wajib, doing Taqleed Wajib. Yes, Taqleed is Wajib, and it is important for us to do Taqleed. If you haven't come across the lecture yesterday, you can go through the lecture again, and I have mentioned the proofs from Quran, from our intellect, and from a hadith that that prove that we need to follow someone who is the most knowledgeable one. So the simple answer is yes, we have to follow someone. Now the next question that comes in is that if a ruling is unknown to us, what is our duty, right? Now this is something that we come across a lot. Our first thing that we need to do is that we need to see if we can get the ruling of that specific marja. What we can do is that we can go into his books and see what is the ruling. or we can go to his website, or we can consult someone that has knowledge about it. We need to get the ruling of that specific marja. But let's suppose if I don't have the accessibility of to that marja, what is my duty to do? Then remember the word I told you before, fal a'lam, right? Someone that you deem that your marja, after your marja, he is the most knowledgeable of all. We mentioned the example of Wahid al-Khurasani, Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani. It could be Ayatullah Sayyid al-Hakim. So let's suppose someone thinks Ayatullah Sayyid al-Hakim is the most knowledgeable one after Ayatullah Sistani. Or someone is deeming Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani is the most knowledgeable one. Now, what I need to do is that if I can find the ruling of Ayatullah Sistani, I need to find the ruling for Fal Alam. What does Fal Alam has said? And whatever, even this is an important point to mention. Remember the thing that we were discussing before, that if we know there are differences in the fatawa of Maraji, let's suppose we know generally that scholars differ in few things, then we need to follow A'lam, which is the most knowledgeable one. But let's suppose I don't know the ruling and I just have in my mind that possibly there might be a difference of opinion between my marja, who is alam according to me, and fal alam, the second marja that I need to refer to. Even then I can still follow my second marja after that. Why? Because I don't have the access to the first scholar or my first marja, who is alam according to me. Even if there's a difference of opinion, you can still follow the second one because you don't have the accessibility towards the fatwa of the marja. But as soon as you will get the fatwa of your own marja, then you wouldn't follow fal a'lam. Is it clear? Till that time, you don't know the fatwa of your scholar, of your marja, you can follow fal a'lam. But as soon as you get to understand or get to know the fatwa of your scholar, of your marja, then you have to refer back to your own marja. So let's suppose, let me give you an example for this. There are different examples related to it. Something that Ayatullah Sistani hasn't said about something. There are stuff that Ayatullah Sistani hasn't mentioned about it. What I can do is that, okay, can I do this thing in Azadari? I'm confused. Can I do it? Shouldn't I do it? I went into Google and I'm searching what is Ayatullah Sistani's opinion on it. I emailed their office, and the reply came back from the office that we don't answer these kind of questions. But still, to know what is the ruling, what should I do in that specific instance? Then what I can do is that I can refer to the scholars that are that is the most knowledgeable one after Ayatullah Sistani and see what he has said, and that would be sufficient for me to act upon. Now a question comes in, what if I'm starting the taqleed now? That's the most common question that comes in, because alhamdulillah, you are small, like you people are doing taqleed from a really young age. But trust me, there are a lot of people in our society that are just starting their taqleed now. And what is their age? They have like, they're 30 years old, 35 years old, 40 years old. In old days, there used to be maraja. There used to be maraja that would say that if you are starting your taqleed now, then whatever you have done in the past, they are void and batil. You have to start it all again. Well, alhamdulillah, Ayatullah Sistani has a good ruling and an easier ruling to deal with. Let's suppose if I'm starting taqleed now and my age is what? 29. So let's suppose I got baligh at age of 15, 14 years. All the things, all the supplication, prayers, wudu, everything that I did was without taqleed. 14 years of ibadat. What should I do now? Ayatullah Sistani says, you have an easier solution. See how were you doing your ibadat? If that ibadat that you are doing or you were doing matches the fatawa of the scholar that you need to follow, let's suppose Ayatullah Sistani, then your ibadats are right and you don't have to practice it again. Let's suppose I learned the way of praying from where? From my Diniyat class, like from my madrasa class. And that madrasa class taught me the way of praying, the best way we should do. You know, doing everything, doing every mustahab, every wajib that needs to be done. And now I'm starting the taqleed. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm starting it now. What is Ayatullah Sistani's ruling? So I'll go through the rulings of Ayatullah Sistani. I would see what he has written. And if he has written the stuff that I was already doing it, then it's of no problem and I can just go forward from there. But let's suppose if I'm doing the taqleed now and whatever rulings Ayatullah Sistani has said, I'm going against it, some of them or most of them or all of them, then in some instances or most of the examples, I have to repeat the ibadah again. Let's suppose Ayatullah Sistani has a specific, like the correct way of doing the wudu. If I wasn't doing the wudu properly, then I have to repeat all the namaz that I haven't done properly since the time I was baligh. So that this is the reason it is so important for us to know who our marja is and also to follow his ruling. So when we come across the situation, practically, I have seen people, and trust me, it is really, really difficult to cope up with that situation where people haven't done taqleed for 40 years, 45 years, and then they come across the rulings and they're kind of devastated. Why? Because repeating the so many ibadats that has to do with so many years is practically the most difficult thing that you can do. So again, one has to do taqleed. Inshallah, you guys will be doing it. You girls will be doing it soon, or you are already doing it. And also to know the rulings and acting upon it is wajib too. One thing, Brother Raza, can we go back to the slides? I think one thing I missed. Go to the 4 ways of knowing a ruling. If you can go back, please.
Okay, and so I have few questions. So whenever you want, I can mention
All
those
right.
questions.
Inshallah, let me just mention this point and then I'll go into the questions.
Okay.
4 ways of knowing a ruling. Here I mentioned that you have to extract from an authentic source. I remember the hadith that I read from the really front go was the hadith from Rasulullah that it is enough for a person to be a liar or to lie that he quotes everything that he hears. For our practical learning, it is learning the stuff through WhatsApp. Like you just see the name of Ayatullah Sistani or from Facebook, from Instagram, from Twitter. You see, okay, this is from Ayatullah Sistani without verifying if it's actually from him or not. And you start acting upon it and start forwarding it to the people. This is the thing that we need to be careful about. Sorry, I didn't mention this point, but when I said about the authentic source, it needs to be either from his office, from his website, or from his book. Only these 3 things. Or if someone that is quoting from these 3 sources, if just someone is telling you that you don't rely upon, you're not relying upon, if someone tells you from WhatsApp message or something, you wouldn't be trusting that. Please keep this thing in your mind. You shouldn't trust that, because as per the hadith of Rasulullah, enough is a person to be a liar that he quotes everything what he hears. All right, can we go into the questions, Brother Radha?
Sure. So one brother is asking, what if let's suppose I am 30 years old and by that time I have no idea who is Mujtahid Alam or who is the Ayatullah or most knowledgeable person. So should I just not do taqleed till I know maybe later in the age?
No, for that matter, if people generally would have really general knowledge of like, okay, there are like 20 mujtahids. So among these 20, there are like 4 of them that I'm like 99% sure within these 4 will be the most alam one, or within these 5 will be the most alam one. So in that matter, you have to do ihtiyat between those 5 marja. Let's suppose if I come across the list and as per my list, Ayatullah Sistani, Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani, Ayatullah Syed al-Hakim, and Ayatullah Musa Zanjani of Qom, these 4 are the top notch. I'm not able to decide, right? So since I'm not able to decide properly, I would be looking in all 4 fatawa of the scholars, and I will be acting in the safest way with the definition of ihtiyat that I told in last class. So we have to do ihtiyat among those 4 people. Or ijmalan, like how many, like people generally have confusion about 1 or 2 or 3 scholars, to be honest. Just either Ayatullah Sistani, Ayatullah Wahid al-Khurasani. So it's easier for me to do ihtiyat. And ihtiyat between the 2 is really easy because almost, I would say 70 to 80% of the times, their fatwa are same. What's the next question?
Okay, so maybe next question is coming from someone who might have missed our yesterday's class. The sister wanted to ask what exactly taqleed means.
Okay,
So
let me just give a small brief answer so that she wouldn't miss out. Taqleed is following someone without asking for the dalil, right? If I want to follow the advice of my doctor, that's a way of doing a taqleed, because I'm just following whatever prescriptions he or she is giving to me. If I'm going to an engineer and I'm asking him to solve some issue, so I'm blindly trusting him to solve an issue, and I'm not asking him, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Likewise, if I have questions regarding my deen and I don't know how to follow that properly, then in that case, I have to refer someone who's the most knowledgeable among all and follow whatever he says and act upon it and do my actions accordingly. That's taqleed in deen.
Jazakallah. And finally, there is one request. So basically, today's class is for both the groups. So I understand some people are having problem keeping up with the pace. So because
Okay.
right, so the topics you're discussing are more towards the group two, the elder group. So they are just requesting. It's a little bit difficult for them to keep up with
No
the
problem.
pace.
No
So
problem.
maybe you can a little bit make it
No
simple.
problem. What I would do is that at the end, I would just give a general answer to this stuff, for that will be for the junior people. Thing is, I go really easy, then it will be a loss for the senior people. And if I go really difficult, then I understand it's difficult for junior people to go along with. So I'm just trying to get a in between thing. Let me just go through a little difficult way, but at the end, I will be summarizing everything, so it'll be easier for you all to follow, inshallah.
Okay, and one brother, I see a raised hand, so I'm unmuting.
Yeah, please go ahead.
When will our class be divided?
It will be from next Saturday. So from next Saturday onwards, it will be two different sessions, one for group one and another for second group. Anybody else? I guess we are good, so you may continue, brother.
All right. So let's suppose if I am relating, let's go to the main slides. Let's suppose if I'm relating a fatwa that was wrong, like I told you the masala, but that masala was wrong. So in that situation, what I need to do is that I have to tell you the right masala. That's the general ruling. When the situation is like, let's suppose if I have told someone the wrong masala, there are two situations here. If that masala or the ruling has to do with everyday life of his, right? And I know if I would be telling him the wrong masala or the wrong ruling, he would be following in the wrong trap and he would be doing stuff wrongly. Then it is wajib upon me to tell him the right thing. Let's suppose if I told him that in wudu you don't have to wipe your feet. Let's suppose I told wrongly, and if I know if he would act upon it, then it will be, then whatever namaz or whatever wudu he will be doing will be wrong. Then in order for me to correct him properly, I have to tell him like precisely, really quickly, brother, I made a mistake here. You have to wipe your feet and it is wajib in wudu. I have to rectify myself. But let's suppose if it has to do with something that is not really common in our everyday life. Let's suppose I told a masala wrongly to someone about talaq. Now, talaq is something that has nothing to do with our everyday life. And I'm pretty sure that person wouldn't be coming across this masala, hopefully, throughout his life. The chances of coming this masala, and within the talaq, I told him something which was really insignificant, something that I'm like 99.9% sure he wouldn't be coming across, or something that I told wrongly regarding the ruling for the well water. Now we living in Western world, or even in the like in Eastern countries in Pakistan, India, Tanzania, or the people coming from different countries, they're using the tap water. They're not using the well water. So let's suppose if I told the wrong masala, wrong ruling regarding the well water, but I'm pretty sure that person wouldn't be coming across this masala for his life, then I don't have to rectify him. Even though if I rectify him, that will be something which is better thing to do. Finally, we come to the 5 general rulings of Islam. What are the 5 things? So you will be coming across this oftenly here. Either things are wajib, which are compulsory to do. Either they're mustahab, they're recommended. Either they're makruh, they're disliked, but if you can still do it, But if you don't do it, that's better. Fourth thing is haram, which is, forbidden. Fifth thing is mubah. Mubah is anything that you would just do generally that doesn't have a thawab, that doesn't have a reward, and that doesn't have an iqab, that doesn't have a punishment. So it's something that we do generally. We are like using Facebook sometimes, we're using Twitter, not excessively, because excessively is not good. But let's suppose we just browsing the, like we just watching some YouTube videos, or we just like eating, drinking, doing like playing sports. All of these things are mubah, right? So these are the 5 general rulings, and whatever rulings that we will be discussing in future classes, that will be within these 5 things. Either they will be wajib, will be mustahab, makruh, haram, or mubah. Either one of these 5 things. Finally, we come to an important issue of ihtiyatul wajib. Ihtiyatul wajib, it comes a lot in fiqh, especially if you'll be going through the books. You will be coming across this terminology a lot, that as per like obligatory precaution, this word will you come across. Or in Urdu, you'll say ihtiyat wajib. In fiqh, in Arabic, we'll say ahwatul wujubi. So these will be few of the terminologies that you will come across. Usually in English, you'll be coming across as per obligatory precaution. Remember this word, these 2 words. So if this thing comes in, then either you follow that marja, whatever ihtiyat he has given to you, you follow that, or either you go to fala'alam. Again, I'll be referring to this word because even for juniors, it might be difficult, but hopefully they would understand. Fala'alam is the marja that you would be referring after your marja, right? The most knowledgeable among all after your own marja that you're following. Okay, so either I can refer what he has written and I can follow him. All right, last thing is, what are the words that are used for ihtiyatul wajib? So sometimes you'll come across these terminologies. Usually they are in Urdu or in Arabic one, but sometimes you'll come across even an English one, which is like ta'ammul. There's a ta'ammul doing this thing. Ta'ammul means you shouldn't do that thing as per ihtiyat wajib. If another marja allows you, then you can do it. The fala'alam allows you, you can do it. But ihtiyat wajib, don't do this thing. Or if, let's suppose there would be another wording, which is ishqal. There's an ishqal doing this thing. Ishqal means you shouldn't do this thing as per ihtiyat wajib. So in that matter, either you don't do that thing and you follow that ihtiyat, or either you go to fala'alam and see what he has said. If he has given the permission to do, you follow and do that thing. If he hasn't given the permission, then you wouldn't do it again, right? And there are many fiqh issues that you would see that would always have ihtiyat wajib, ihtiyat wajib, ihtiyat wajib. So in that way, we can refer to the people, to the fala'alam, or the person, or the marja that we deem most knowledgeable among all after our own marja. So this concludes the presentation for today. And I think I just went a little bit ahead, 5 minutes ahead. It's 4:50 here, but I hope so. You guys would have understood it really well. And now just let me know if you have any questions, inshallah.
Well, I have a question. I got a question. What exactly is ihtiyat wajib, and why do a mujtahid would do ihtiyat instead of giving a general fatwa? So
That's a really good question. I mean, like, I would love to entertain that. But just giving a brief answer to that, ihtiyat wajib is something that a mujtahid is not really definite about the ruling. When he gives a fatwa, he's definite about the ruling. This is the ruling, and I'm like 99 to 100% sure that's the ruling. But in ihtiyat wajib, he has some sort of like, he's going through the text and he's going through the books, and he's just not getting the final answer. But just to be on the safe side, he says that do the thing which is a little harder to do, right? In that way, mujtahid would be just giving you a sense of precaution. Look, my ruling is, not giving me a definite answer, but I think so. If we follow this way, it will be safer, and it will be something that I'm 100% sure if we follow the ihtiyat, that we would be acting upon the ruling of the deen. That's why a mujtahid gives ihtiyat wajib. And when he gives ihtiyati wajib, since he is not 100% definite about the ruling, in that matter, we can refer to the mujtahid or the marja who is most knowledgeable after the marja that we are following. Usually there are a lot of, alhamdulillah, throughout the Shia history, we just didn't have one marja only, generally. Generally, we have more than one scholars that were mujtahid and that were really knowledgeable. So we always had to make a choice between the scholars. In old days, used to be Ayatullah Hui and Ayatullah Muhammad Raza Gulpaigani, Ayatullah Abdul Ala Sabzwari. Before that, we had Ayatullah Brojardi, Ayatullah Muhsin Hakim, Ayatullah Abul Hasan Asfahani. So we had, mashallah, chain of scholars throughout the history, and we have to make a choice among them. So in ihtiyat wajib, when you come across the ihtiyat of a scholar from your marja, then you can follow fal-alam, who is the most knowledgeable after that. One thing that I forgot to tell is that I want to go through for our juniors, really basically, inshallah, I'll just take 2 minutes. So we started with the concept of taqleed here. Taqleed is following someone without the proof, following the marja. As we went to the example of the doctor, of the engineer, you will go and have your things done. Likewise, if we have a religious question, we will go to the marja. That's basically what is meant by taqleed. What is the intellectual proof of taqleed? Intellectual proof is that a jahil will always go to an alim. An ignorant person will always go to someone who is knowledgeable. If we have questions related to our deen, who should we go? The person who is the most knowledgeable among all. That's the basic intellectual proof. Then we went through the proof from Quran. We referred to a Quranic ayat that gives us two sets of people. One that we need to follow, that would be coming across and would be doing tabligh to the people. And the second group of people are the one who should follow them. And then we had the proofs from the Riwayah of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We had the hadith from Amr bin Hanzala. We have the hadith from about Abu Basir al-Asadi, and we have the hadith from about Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman, and also about Imam Zamana saying before he went to the occultation, major occultation, the whatever things you come across, you should refer to the narrators of the hadith, which are whom? Are maraji'. So as for the hadith too, if we don't have access to the imams, imam have asked us to refer to who? To people, and people that were really trustworthy to be followed. Then we went through the conditions of maraji. We went through the 9 conditions, and you can just go and skim through it. Then we went through how to identify a mujtahid. We went through 3 main things. Either you have your own knowledge, you are personally convicted, this was the most knowledgeable one, or 2 adil people, just people, like let's suppose Maulana of your masjid, 2 Maulanas of your masjid, attesting someone, or someone that you or a group of learned people that we talk about. There's a committee of the scholars that are really learned, and they give the rulings. Look, these are the mujtahid that you can do taqleed of. Then we went through today we went through the rules of how to get the ruling of a marja'. There are 4 things that we went through. We went through in depth, and then we went through some of the common questions. If the marja' has changed his ruling, is it important for us to investigate? My answer was no. You can just follow whatever you have come across in the previous authentic source. If you have a doubt, if you're 100% sure that he has changed the ruling, then you have to refer to the new ruling. But just being doubtful doesn't mean that you have to investigate the issue. If a marja dies, then what you have to do, you have to go and ask, you have to follow fal-alam and see what does he tell about remaining in the taqleed of the old marja. If he allows it, then you can still be doing the taqleed of the old marja. If he doesn't allow it, then you wouldn't be doing it. And if he says it's wajib, compulsory, then you have to remain in the taqleed of your old marja. Then we had some sort of questions. What rulings are necessary? I said we need to learn anything that has to do with our everyday life. And if a ruling is unknown, then we can follow fal-alam in that matter, someone who is most knowledgeable after our marja'. And if I'm starting the taqleed now, then I just have to see whatever way I was doing the ibadat. Is it matching the fatawa of my marja that I have to follow? If it matches, then it should be fine. If it doesn't match, then we can investigate and go into further. And what if someone has told the wrong masala? Then the easier answer was that if it has to do with everyday issue, and if you know that will impact his religious following, then you need to tell him the authentic masala. But if you know, if it's something that was just for the general knowledge, and that thing won't be coming practically in his life, then you don't have to tell him. But if you tell him, it will be still something good to do. Then we said there are 5 general rulings of Islam. It's wajib, mustahab, makruh, haram, and mubah, which are like compulsory things, recommended things, disliked things, forbidden things, and something which is good to do, good to go. And finally, we went into ihtiyatul wajib. I think I explained that really deeply, but it's like in case if your mujtahid has said as per the obligatory precaution, or has said ishqal, or has used the word ta'ammul, then we can refer to a mujtahid who is most knowledgeable after him. That's end our discussion. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi tahirin.